Today we're going to be moving on to the Triarch Stalker. You can collect this model for $60 in the US or £35 in the UK. Now at base cost it's going to cost you 120 points to field the model, and there are some optional upgrades which we'll go over in a moment. Now this is going to be one of your elite selections from the Necron Codex. It's a vehicle, it's going to have the core keyword, but it's going to have a few restrictions in terms of buffing this model because it's a dynastic agent. It can't have a dynasty keyword, no Mephrit dynasty, no Novak dynasty, and it's also going to be restricted in terms of my will be done and things like that. So it's quite quick, it's got a 10-inch movement. Now it is only toughness 6. For a vehicle that's not that much, but it does have quantum shielding, don't forget, so it has to be wounded on a 4+ roll, and also gives it a 5+ invulnerable save as well. Now it also does come with 12 wounds and a 3+ armor save. Now as for the stats themselves, they do degrade as the model takes damage. It's the movement, the weapon skill, as well as the ballistic skill that gets affected. Now all 3 of those are quite important to this model. Now other abilities of note, of course, living metal, command protocols, we know what that is by now. We've already mentioned the quantum shielding. It does explode because it's a vehicle model, but the main reason for taking this model is for the targeting relay. So how this works is you fire it at an enemy unit, and if a hit is actually scored, and it's quite important that you actually score that hit, only needs to be 1, then army wide, anybody that's attacking that unit at range gets to reroll hit rolls of a 1. When you combine that with my will be done for other units as well, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, you're pretty much not missing there. But let's go over the ways that this model is actually going to hit a target at range. Now there are 3 options in terms of the weaponry. The first is the heat ray. This is going to cost an additional 5 points to take, and it comes in 2 profiles. It's effectively like a heavy flamer and a multi-melter combined. So the dispersed side of the heat ray is 12-inch range, heavy 2d6, strength 5, -1 AP and 1 damage, and of course it's automatically hitting. So really nice on Overwatch for example, and just getting rid of those chaff units that aren't too far away. Now the other side of the weapon, which is the focus side of the heat ray, 24-inch range, heavy 2, strength 8, -4 AP, and the damage is d6, and if you're within half range it'll be d6 +2. Again, quite like a melter weapon. Now don't forget, for the targeting relay to work you need to score a hit, so if you are firing with that 2-shot focused heat ray, you do have a chance of actually missing. Whereas with the dispersed side of the profile, it does automatically hit, so you do score a hit that way, but you can only select one of these profiles to use. Now if that didn't float your boat, option number 2, which is actually my preferred option, is the particle shredder. It's still only 24-inch range, but this time it's heavy 8. With 8 shots you're pretty much guaranteed to hit something with that amount of shots there. It is strength 6, so it's wound and toughness 3 on a 2+. It's -1 AP and 2 damages. It probably is a little bit overkill there, but with the 8 shots firing at say Space Marine models, okay, the Armour of Contempt does come into effect, so there's no AP, but you should remove a few of those models there. Now that's a free option, that's not going to cost you any additional points there. Now the third option will, which is the Twin Heavy Gauss Cannon. This is going to cost you 15 points. And this is what it does. So it's heavy 6, strength 7, -3 AP, and the damage is D3. Now I personally find strength 7 to be in a bit of an awkward place at the moment, especially with the D3 damage. Are you going up against infantry? Are you going up against vehicles? If you're going up against vehicles, you don't really have the damage to deal the actual damage, whereas if you're going up against infantry, strength 5, strength 6 is going to be more than enough. Possibly monsters, I guess, it may do a bit of harm to those kind of models. But yeah, strength 7 I think is in a little bit of a weird spot at the moment. Now you do get 6 shots with this, so you're almost certain to get at least 1 hit roll out of that. You never know, dice can be dice at times and you might miss all of them. But you are paying 15 additional points for a D3 damage weapon. You could roll a 1 on the damage, not do much at all. This is why I prefer the particle shredder. So that's the weapons. Now this makes this unit quite a flexible unit, doesn't it? But I always come back to the fact that you need to get off the targeting relay. Now it does also have a melee weapon, although it isn't actually that good in melee if I'm honest with you. So it's strength user, which makes it strength 7, -2 AP and 3 damage. Now the damage is quite nice to be fair, 3 damage, but the problem here is you only get 3 attacks. It doesn't come close to matching up to say Space Marine Dreadnoughts. They normally have strength ×2, strength 10 kind of weapons, but strength 7 does feel a little bit underwhelming, especially with 3 attacks there. The -2 AP is another problem, especially Armour of Contempt as well, going down to -1 AP, but I just feel like it should either have more attacks or just a better strength. I don't mind if it didn't have both, but one of those profiles should be slightly increased. Now synergy wise, pretty much anything in the codex that can shoot, with that targeting relay, rerolling hit rolls of a 1, that's going to be pretty decent. Now don't forget the Destroyer Cult units already have this naturally, so they're not going to really synergize that well, especially your Locust Destroyers and your Locust Heavy Destroyers. Also, you're not going to need to bring a Necron Lord for the Lord's Will. You don't need to reroll the ones again because you've got the targeting relay. Now, he does work well with the Overlord models, and anything that can give the My Will Be Done ability, hitting on the 2+ and rerolling the ones on top is pretty nice. However, that ability is not going to work on the Triarch Stalker himself, even though it's a core unit. Some of the models that give the My Will Be Done ability require a Dynasty core unit. Now, there are some that don't require the Dynasty units, such as Amrakir the Traveller, Trazen the Infinite, also the Silent King as well, and he gets you to reroll everything to him. It's also worth noting Illumina Zarez can actually augment this model, because again, it's not a Dynasty unit, it's just a core unit, so you could be adding to the toughness, adding to the strength, or adding to the ballistic skill. All three of those are pretty decent at this stage. Now, before the summary, there are 3 stratagems that are available for the Triarch Stalker. Now, in fact, there are more than that, but there's 3 that you're going to want to focus on. The first one is Judgment of the Triarch. It's only 1 CP, and it simply adds 1 to your hit roll. And very similar to the My Will Be Done, in fact, and you can use that in the shooting phase, you can use it in the fighting phase. It won't last all game, it will only last 1 phase, but you can take your pick when you want to use it. Second one is Stellar Alignment Protocol for 1 command point. If your Stalker is bracketed on a lower profile, for 1 command point you put it to its best bracket, so it's got the top movement of 10 inches, hitting on a 3+ as opposed to hitting on a 4+ or even a 5+. And the final one is Curse of the Pharaon. If it does get destroyed, you don't need to roll a 6, you simply pop this stratagem and automatically explode. That's going to be every unit within 6 inches suffering D3 mortal wounds. So in smaller games, I find it quite difficult to fit a Triarch Stalker within my list. It's in quite a competitive area of our codex, the elite section. It's competing with the Catan Shards, for example, the Lich Guard, the Scorpic Destroyers. So yeah, I find it really difficult to put them within the list. However, it is quite a resilient model, to be fair. Because it's got the core keyword, it can be doing ancient machineries. But if you were doing ancient machineries, don't forget to use the Protocol of Sunstorm to be able to do your actions while still firing. Again, that's the whole point of taking this weapon. You need to fire it, you need to make a hit roll that succeeds, so that army-wide you've got the rerolls to 1s. Now, unfortunately, you can't give it objective secured because it doesn't have a Dynasty code, but it's still quite a resilient model to be holding on to one of your backline objectives, perhaps. So let's get on to the rating today. I'm going to be giving the Triarch Stalker a Planet 40k rating of 3.5 stars.